Helping you make the most of your retirement. This is the Retirement Years Podcast. Here are your hosts, Mary Ellen French and Dave Wing.
Hi there, I'm Mary Ellen.
And I'm Dave, and today we'll talk about a life coach who specifically works with those about to retire or those who are looking for more direction in retirement. On today's episode, we'll be speaking with Jennifer Rovet. Jennifer is a certified retirement coach from Toronto who has worked with retired individuals for nearly 10 years. She'll share with us how she works with individuals or couples to help them create a rewarding retirement lifestyle.
And you know, Dave, I would have fallen into that second category, right, of those who are looking for more direction in retirement. Because I think I've shared this with listeners before that I, was a little bit lost, a little bit without a rudder at the beginning of my retirement. And it wasn't really for lack of things to do. There were lots of things to choose, but I didn't have a direction, or a sort of a specific purpose to ground me.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of people retire on their own and they don't even think about the possibility of having a coach. But I mean, if you really want to succeed at anything, like if you were an Olympic athlete or someone who wants to succeed in business, I mean, you get yourself a coach. And so it makes sense that if you want to have a powerful retirement and really do something with it, it makes sense to consult with a retirement coach.
It does. And in some cases, I'd say better sooner than later. But as we've discussed in the phases of retirement, there's the honeymoon phase. Oh, enjoy that. You had a lifetime of responsibility. Go ahead. But just know that probably at the end of that, you're going to kind of come to a, oh, all right. I've done a few of those things I wanted to do. And I think for some people or a lot of people, and they don't have to be typically type A, although that's for whom I can speak, because it doesn't come with a guide or a set of expectations or a structure. You're like, what? This is kooky town. Like, I don't know what is it I'm going to do. And I know, that can cause a lot of stress.
Yeah, it can. It can. And I think that, we're going to come back to that topic of structures after we hear from Jennifer. So as you've mentioned, we're going to hear today that she's one of many certified retirement coaches across North America and around the world. And a certified retirement coach is a life coach, but they've specialized in working with people who are considering retirement or already retired. So let's hear what she had to say about what drew her to this career in the first place, and then how a retirement coach could be right for you.
Okay, so Jennifer, welcome. And thank you so much for taking time to talk to us on the podcast today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, David. It's a pleasure to be here.
Let's start off with, would you tell us a bit about, your background and then what led you to pursue a career in helping others transition to retirement?
Yeah, for sure. So I studied psychology at McGill University. And then after a few years after that, after working in my 20s, I pursued a postgraduate certificate in human resource management. And I was an HR generalist for about 5 years. And then I switched my focus to just recruitment. So I really liked that aspect of human resource, like helping people find a job, all that. And that led me to working at a not-for-profit organization that sends volunteers, senior level professionals abroad to work with our partners to help build their capacity by sharing their skills and expertise. So those volunteers are mostly semi-retired or retired professionals. And so through this job, I learned more about retirement and how volunteering is such a great opportunity when you are retired to, those who have more time on their hands and want to give back. And at the same time, my parents were starting to think about their retirement, and I just saw through their, struggles, and I'm speaking with some of their friends, that just how hard it can be to plan your retirement. And so I was just thinking, like, I wonder if there's just somebody out there that can help with this sort of thing. So such as a retirement coach. So I looked it up, and sure enough, there are retirement coaches out there, and you can get your designation So I got my designation and I started my company, Retire Ready Canada, in 2019. And it's been great. I've been just slowly growing the business. That's my goal. And I've been really proud of what I've been able to accomplish working with my clients and seeing the success that they've had.
Well, and I'll be honest, before Mary Ellen asked me to join her on this podcast, first of all, I didn't know that it was normal to have fear of heading into that huge transition. And when I sort of got drifting, I thought it was unique to me. And often people are sitting there thinking, well, this is just me that's having these. So we're hoping between what you do and what we're trying to do, that we're raising awareness that no, that's a pretty normal feeling.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
you're changing, you're doing a 180 kind of thing in many cases. So we mentioned as we were coming into this segment with you that you're a certified professional retirement coach.
Yes.
And I've got kind of a three-part question, so I'll just give them to you one at a time so you're not trying to remember them in your head. First, an obvious question is, how does one become a certified retirement coach?
Yes. So I received my designation through the Retirement Coaches Association. And this was a program developed by the founder of the organization. His name is Robert Laura, and he created this program, this designation, with two other professionals. So that's how I did it. There are other ways to do it. I know a lot of people go through retirement options. I don't know too much about that one, but yeah, you just have to, there's not a lot of ways to get certified, but I think those two are the main. And then a lot of retirement coaches are just coaches, like life coaches, and they build the retirement niche or area into their practices.
And are they all across like North America, internationally? Coaches are available almost anywhere?
They're popping up everywhere. There are certainly a number of us across Canada. I don't know the exact number. I would say probably about, maybe there's 50 of us. Not a lot. And then there's many, many more in the United States. And I think it's just, for whatever reason, it's more popular in the United States. Their population is so much larger than us, so there's just more people. And there are international coaches too. I'm actually connected to a few in the UK and one in Australia. So they are out there.
Well, in that, broadening your experiences and your information would only help what you're doing. Like, for example, bonding with the UK individual, you'd see some of the trends there, which could either be behind what we're thinking or ahead of what you've heard here. Yeah, that would be a good perspective.
For sure. And I just attended the Retirement Coaches Association. I think this is their 8th annual conference. It was virtual. And it's really interesting to hear from other coaches from all over the world, and just hear what other people are doing. And like, as you said, like best practices. So we do support each other as coaches, and we do learn from each other. And we're just trying to get the word out there that, hey, we're retirement coaches. We're here to help, and just make people aware of us.
So if we've already piqued someone's interest, what would be Google obviously, but what's the easiest way to try to find a coach that's either someone that suits you or regionally is a good fit?
Yeah, now that we all work virtually, it doesn't really matter where the coach is.
Right.
Like I have clients all across Canada. I've had one in the US actually. So yes, absolutely. Just Google retirement coach and do your internet search. Another way is to actually go to the Retirement Coaches Association's website. And on that website, they have a feature called Find a Coach. So then you can select your country, and then you can further narrow it more down to province or state. Right. And then it's just a matter of finding someone that, on first glance appeals to you, like going through their website. And then I really suggest contacting that person and having a conversation with them, and maybe contact a few and just see if it is a good fit for you.
And of course, with a podcast, we could have someone doing everything from cooking dinner to taking a walk. And so we always, the website that you've been talking about, we'll put that on our website as well. Okay. So it's easy for someone to go back in and just simply click it. So someone comes up to you and says, do I need a retirement coach and what can you do for me? And that's really at the heart of what you do. So what would you tell that individual?
Yeah. So I would say, like, why do you think you need a coach? And then let them tell me more about their situation and what they're going through, and hear their situation, and then be able to say, I can help you if this is what you're looking for. I can help you, find out what are your values and priorities. What are you looking for? What are your goals in retirement? And then help them, create some structure and meaning and purpose in their life. So it's really, when someone says that, it's just, as the coach, you just have to dig a little bit deeper and say, like, why do you need a coach? Or why do you feel you need a coach? And just go from there and, like, let them talk and see what they have to say. And then just tell them what you can offer or what I can offer.
And that's an excellent approach, because just as you were saying that, I was thinking there could be someone coming into retirement on their own, single. They could have a pension. They may not have a pension. They could have recently lost someone. There's a lot of different factors, and I think you've hit it on the head. If you listen first, there is no one size fits all. Well, there's not. We've said that for 3 seasons now, going into our 4th. There's no one size fits all retirement. So there'd be no one size fits all way to help them reach whatever retirement that looks like.
And just in terms of the way that I work with clients, I don't have like a specific cookie cutter way that I coach. It's because everybody's so different, and everyone's retirements are so different, or what people want in life. So it's really a matter of just listening to what the client is saying, and then as a coach, asking those right questions and providing insight, and really getting them to dig deeper into what it is that they want in their life.
Now, you hit on a key word when helping someone develop structure. And we've talked about this with many different guests on the podcast about work life becomes your identity.
Yeah.
In many ways, your purpose. But at the very least, whether you like the job or not, it's your structure. It gets you out of bed in the morning, gives you that purpose. And when that's gone, that can be a pretty scary thing. So you must come across that. And again, there's going to be different ways of dealing with it, but are there any ways that you could share with us that you've tried to help someone deal specifically with that fear factor?
Yeah. So it does come up. It doesn't come up with everybody. Like, not everybody has their identity tied to their work, but it does come up. And what I try to do is really figure out, what it is about their job that they love so much. Like, what strengths do they bring to their job? And then use that information and try to, like, pull out, okay, this is like what you say your strengths are. This is what you say you enjoy from your job. How can we then translate that into your retirement years? So you have to go beyond just like the job title, so, I have an example. Let's say we're looking at a doctor, and doctors, like, that's what they've done their whole life. This is what they know, being a doctor. Yeah. But, the doctor is just the job title, but what is it that they actually do as a doctor? A doctor connects with people, they help people, they care for people. They're doing amazing work like research, or, connecting with groups of people, committees, and, like, interacting with their staff and at the hospitals or clinic, whatever it is. So it's like, it's those things from their job. And try to, as I said, try to transition those skills or those meaningful things in their job into their retirement years. So yes, you were a doctor and you definitely identify with that. But as you move into retirement, like, just what was it about being a doctor that you love so much, and try to bring that forward. And another thing, I recently published a workbook with a fellow retirement coach named Antoinette Petrillo. And one of the exercises in our workbook is an exercise called What Will You Miss, or What I Will Miss. And you list all those items from your work that you will miss or you think you'll miss, and then list why you'll miss them, and then what can you replace it with. And that's a really powerful exercise, because again, you're thinking about all those aspects that you love about your work, and then try to, like, say, okay, well, in retirement, I love to do this in my work. How can I then take that into my retirement years and still be happy and fulfilled, and create some sort of new identity with that?
We've discussed that in the context of perhaps then you could apply that to where it would be best that you volunteer, because you'll get that satisfaction, that those things that you liked about your job, or if you want to take on a job in retirement. For some,
Absolutely,
that's a goal. For others, that's unfortunately the reality, because they need to pay the bills, but or they just want to get out and be social. But yeah, the same thing. Like I was, if someone says I was an office manager, well, you've got all kinds of skills that could be welcomed at any, especially volunteer organization, but at
yeah,
a
absolutely.
job that's a few hours a week or whatever. But it is one way to, I think, find that fulfillment.
Yeah.
And we talked a lot about that as vis-a-vis volunteering, because that's a great way to do it, and you're giving back. On your website, which again we'll have that on our website as well, for people to reach out. You have your monthly blog, Rethink Retirement, and I was snooping around in there, and there's a ton of great topics, and some that we've discussed. And you're like, oh, look, we were on the right track. But the one that, in a way, I guess it's intuitive, but one that I hadn't thought of, and that was the an introvert or an extrovert or introvert retirement, and exploring some of the different ways that different people may experience retirement. In a nutshell, do both introverts and extroverts have sort of same challenges in retirement, or do they have, some of them have very different challenges? Because I find that a pretty interesting topic, especially since we know the value of not isolating in retirement.
Yeah, so it's an interesting question. And I think first you have to look at like what is an introvert and what's an extrovert. So an extrovert is someone who's very, outgoing, social, and they get their energy from being around people and like being out all the time. An introvert, not so much. They find like big parties and big crowds and people, it can all be a little overwhelming for them, and they get their energy just from being a little more quiet at home by themselves. They like that. So it's really important that as you go into retirement, that you are self-aware and really identify which one are you? Are you the extrovert or introvert? And, an extrovert will seek out those social interactions probably more than an introvert. Not to say that an introvert won't, but it just might look a little different. So an extrovert, for example, might, seek out large social gatherings, want to do like a exercise class or be part of like a larger committee or volunteer work with lots of people, and be out on the go and keeping very busy. Like, you hear so many times when people say, oh, I'm retired and I've never been this busy before. It's true. Lots of people are like that. And then an introvert, while they may do the same things as an extrovert, it might just look a little different. So, they might want to have like lunch, a one-on-one lunch with a friend, and grab that same friend and go for a walk, or maybe do a small intimate yoga class. So they can get out there and be active and social. It's just, it looks slightly different. So it's just important to figure out who you are, what brings you joy, what makes you comfortable, and plan for, that accordingly.
Well, because you're in the best position of your life to dictate those terms.
Yeah.
Because before, no matter which type you were, your job demanded a certain something from you. But and I think the key word you use there too is self-awareness, because you can't be living someone else's retirement if what
Absolutely,
you enjoy doing is going to book clubs, or those smaller, more subtle interactions than the big, the bigger ones. Then there's nothing wrong with that, I guess.
I think it's great to get ideas from other people for retirement plans. Like if someone's just like, oh, I don't know what to do, and they talk to their friend, and it's good to get ideas, but like, don't try to copy somebody else's life, because that's not going to work, because what works for one person will probably not work for another. Yeah. And there's even some school of thought, which I've read, that in some ways introverts might be able to transition a little bit better into retirement, because, when you leave the workplace, you lose a lot of those social connections, and, extroverts might get so much energy out of that, like going into the office every day, seeing people every day. Whereas introverts, once they leave that, they may not mind so much.
Right.
So I've read that school of thought, and it's interesting. And of course, the worst thing you want to do is just not do anything. So many people are like, oh my God, I don't have a job to go to anymore. I'm so looking forward just like staying at home. And that's fine, but don't let that be your whole life, because that leads to a whole slew of like bad things happening in your life, like staying in bed too long, watching too much TV, gaining weight, and then that leads to lots of health problems. And it could take you down a dark side of retirement, and I hate to say it, but even like an early death. So social interaction is so important to stay healthy and live a long life.
We had a healthcare worker on in a previous season who spoke about her specialty's dementia. And we asked to kind of put her on the spot, but said, what's, because you hear things like do brain teasers, do this, do that. And so we asked her, like, what would be the short answer to what should you do to best maintain your sharpness? And she said social interaction.
Yeah.
Because the number of things being fired at you and you have to react to is amazing, and it makes your brain maintain that ability to stretch a bit. So
yeah. And even if you look at those blue zones, I don't know if you've ever like read about them, and there's even a documentary about them, and all the blue zones have this amazing community aspect to them. And it's true, like that can help you live longer when you have that community and social interactions and the friendships and relationships. It really is powerful and goes a long way.
So it sounds to me like that person who may be feeling a little blue or not getting out as much as they did should contact a retirement coach. That sounds like a good idea.
I hope they do.
So on that note, I read that you do one-on-one or couples. And before I get to the second part of the question, if a couple, obviously sometimes, I shouldn't say most times, but there's going to be times when it's a staggered retirement. So if you're doing a couple session, can the other person not retiring, because the impact on them is fairly huge as well? Have you had situations, or would they be able to come as a couple to work with you if one's retired or about to retire and the other not?
Yeah, actually, I've never really had that, but it's certainly possible, and I welcome that if that's what they want to do. I don't know if it's the best thing. Like, I'm not sure how much, like, I guess there could be some value in it, that the two can like communicate with me, like have some dialogue and, discuss with the one who's going to retire what their, plans, hopes, dreams are for retirement, and the other one can listen.
Right.
And maybe there could be some communication about like what to expect, what could they expect when one's retired, one's not, and how, it's going to be different when one's retired and one's not. I have worked with couples who planning to retire together. So that's one way to look at it. So they're coming to me, they have this plan to retire together. And so they want to create this plan with me, with my help. And we go from there. So it's interesting working with couples. Sometimes they can bicker a little bit, and I feel like I'm just almost like a therapist, like sort of watching them like hash this out in front of me.
I don't doubt it, because believe it or not, after several years together, sometimes you don't communicate better. I'm just going to leave that there. So what is that intake like process, at least for you specific, because you couldn't speak, everybody does it, but and now I've gotten over the hump, I'm going to do it. How's that start off?
So people can contact me through my website. There's a form, just like your name, phone number, email address, and a little space to put some comments in if you'd like. So they can contact me through my website. They can email me or call me if they wish. And then I will set up a half hour or however long they need consultation call, or a discovery call, if you will. And during that time, I like to hear about their situation. And again, like why do they feel they need a coach at this time? So we have that conversation. So they tell me like where they're at, what they're thinking. And then I use that opportunity to tell them more about my services and what I can offer and how I can help them. So if they, some people go off and need to think about it, they get back to me, or some people are like, this sounds great, sign me up. So we decide how many sessions they'd like to have. I generally coach anywhere from like 3 to 6 sessions. Right. That's about enough that people need. And then we set up the first session date, and I will send them a calendar invite with the Zoom link, and I'll send them an intake form and a coach and client agreement form. And then I'll mail them a copy of my workbook. So my workbook is included in the package that I offer. And that's it. And then we start on our first session and we go from there.
So a couple things before I forget. The book that you co-authored.
Yes.
The workbook.
Yes.
I think it may be available on a large online platform.
Yes.
Yeah,
it is available on Amazon.
Yeah, yes.
Amazon.com and Amazon.ca. Actually, it's available on any Amazon in any country. So
And the title again is
Reach for Retirement.
Okay. We will have that link as well on our website. And what's your website again? And if they want to get in touch.
Yeah. So my website is Retire Ready Canada. So www.retirereadycanada.com.
Okay.
And my email address is retirereadycanada@gmail.com.
Okay. And they can reach out to you in one of those two ways.
Absolutely.
Well, Jennifer, again, thank you for doing this. And as I said, in looking at your website and your blog and those things, I realized how perfectly it would come into any of our seasons, but this season when we're specifically talking transitions, and this is a big one, and that's your focus to help people with that. So I would encourage anyone, whether it's Jennifer, a retirement coach, if you feel more comfortable, if it's near you, or as you said, reach out to look at different ones. But I think you've heard today that Jennifer would be a great one to try to help you out. And again, thank you so much. And who knows, maybe our paths will cross again in the future.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
So interesting that what drew Jennifer to this career was watching her own parents struggle with transitioning, right, from decades-long careers, which is what you and I both had, transitioning from those to retirement. And that was really what led her to seek out a career in retirement coaching.
Yeah, and I keep marveling at the interesting nuggets of information we learn from guests, and hopefully for listeners, that's true for them as well. And it's fun to go along for that ride. For example, this season, it's not the only thing, but I think it's closely related that we learned about. Not only were there death doulas, but there's an association that certifies them as well. And here with the retirement coaches, they have an association that they can get a certification from too. And from what Jennifer said, they're easily accessed. And many of them work virtually, if not all. And so no matter where you live, you should be able to find one. And the importance, of course, is finding the one that's the best fit and try them on, as it were. And we were just saying just before we heard from Jennifer about that investment, and it is a relatively small investment of your time and your resources to maybe do something that'll pay off in a happy retirement for decades. Exactly.
Because as we heard from one of our guests earlier on in this season, Kiki of Sage Advice, we're probably the first generation that can anticipate living well longer than any previous generation. And so, you want to invest in that in multiple ways. And a retirement coach is just one of those ways. And Jennifer talked about, the fact, one of the first things she talked about in when she has a conversation with prospective clients is why they think they need a retirement coach. Yeah. And, I think that's genius, because really the key is to listen and then come up with a plan together, which again goes along with what Kiki was saying. And then Jennifer can then provide some insight into how that person can be happy in retirement, because really that's all any of us wants is to be happy. And each retirement is going to be different. Like, it's not like there's a blueprint.
Right.
Yeah.
That reminds me of a quote from earlier this season we had from a guest about listening for understanding, or listening for response. And in this case, it's so much upside to having, an approach like Jennifer's where, well, I don't know exactly why you're here. Why don't I hear about it before I start telling you how you perhaps should live your retirement? So
Yeah.
that's a nice first step and something that would relax the person coming in for intake for sure.
Yeah.
Jennifer did say that not all clients, but some definitely do have that fear of retirement, whether they're coming before they retire or just as they have retired. And of course, that reminded us about Dr. Riley Moynes, who was a great guest for us in season 2, who talked about taking those parts of your job, because leaving the job, there's got to be things you're worried about leaving behind, and there should be hopefully something you loved about the job, and taking those parts and adapting them into your retired life.
Yes.
And Jennifer uses that similar approach. And you heard her mention her first question, or one of the worksheets she likes to give is, tell me, what will you miss? Answer that question for me. And there's no minimum or maximum, I'm sure. You could just say, these are the things that I'll miss. And it might even be the break room, because that is a highlight of the day sometimes. And that gets the process going. And then the workbook that she co-authored, Reach for Retirement, it is indeed available on Amazon. I went in and looked for that, and it can help guide you to prepare before. Maybe that'll help convince you to contact a coach or prepare you because you are going to.
Yeah. You know, Dave, when you said maybe sometimes the favorite part of work was the break room, reminds me of if you ask most teenagers or preteens what their favorite part of school is, most will tell you it's recess.
Yes. Yes, you are right.
So Jennifer has a website, retirereadycanada.com, and that has a great deal of information on it, including a retirement guide that you can download for free. We always like to find free resources for our listeners.
Yep.
And when you go there, check out Jennifer's blogs. Of particular interest was one that focused on how introverts and extroverts potentially have different issues in retirement. So interesting. Not something that I had considered, about myself even in retirement is whether I'm an introvert or an extrovert. And some days I feel I'm one and some days I feel I'm the other. But in her blog, she talked about how extroverts will seek out social interaction and larger group activities. But in some cases, those could be hard to find. Like if you live in a, remote part of the province or the state.
Yeah.
And that then, of course, could lead to some feelings of isolation and loneliness, which is what a lot of people experienced during the pandemic who were extroverts. And introverts are usually happy with smaller group activities or even just staying at home. And they have to be careful not to isolate themselves from the world, because that can also be unhealthy. So just another interesting perspective, right? There's no right, there's no wrong. Everybody's different. Everybody's retirement's going to look a little bit different, but just something to really reflect on as you're considering what your retirement might look like in the context of, do I consider myself an introvert or an extrovert, and what might I need to look out for?
Yeah, it's just another one of the many things that will determine your retirement, which may make it different than others. And I hadn't thought of that until I read this blog, that you could have a certain amount of wealth or certain lack of wealth, stable housing, not stable housing. But at the end of the day, a lot of it's going to be also dictated by what kind of character are you?
Yeah.
And that's something to reflect on as well. Not that maybe you can change that, but you could be aware.
Yeah.
Take small steps.
Yeah.
And as all, we want to thank Jennifer again for her time. And if you feel you're ready to reach out to her, or in her case specifically, as she said, you can drop by the website, the retirereadycanada.com, and then you can send her an email, fill out the intake form from there. And if you're considering that, take that step. Just take that step. And if it's not for you, it didn't cost you anything.
Nope.
You can always step aside. And next time on the Retirement Years podcast, we're going to visit with an individual who has turned his passion for craft beer and his skills as an engineer into creating a popular local brew pub in upstate New York. I'm looking forward to that.
Oh, yes.
And until next week, I'm Dave.
And I'm Mary Ellen. Stay well.
You've been listening to the Retirement Years podcast. Original music by Theodora Draper. Web design by Gavin Hinton. Social media marketing and management provided by Madison Sloan. Find her at MSS Mad Media.